I'm also gonna record this. You got the PDF and everything all right this time?
Yep, I got it. It's working great.
Yes. Beautiful.
It's only 2 pages though, right?
Yeah. You got the PDF and everything all right this time?
Yep, I got it. It's working great.
Okay.
It's only 2 pages though, right?
Yeah. You hear that back?
Great. Yeah, crazy echo. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's okay.
It's only 2 pages though.
It's the live stream. You hear that? Stop it, live stream. Okay, there we go. It's weird how it does that, like, because it automatically opens up Facebook and then starts an echo chain. So you think you would know that, but
well, you could start it on another device, and then mute that device.
that makes sense. Absolutely, that's a good idea.
How would you know? Because it'll still pick up you talking, even if it's muted. You'd have to turn off the microphone to it. I don't know. More complicated than you might think.
On the on your main one?
On your Facebook device. No, but it wouldn't. No, that wouldn't work. My theory's open window.
Yeah, it seems like it would just, you should send it to, I don't know how to, oh, this person's not available on Messenger. Weird. Nick might just pick it up anyways. Nice. Cool. Very cool. So you're on your last week out there, hey?
Oh yeah.
Nice. Did you get to do surfing today?
No. I mean, I haven't been able to surf really in Puerto Escondido just because it's so logistically difficult. But no, just running.
Nice. Puerto Escondido is where Layla and I went.
Yeah, you mentioned that. It's an awesome spot for people, for energy. All of that is really great. And so it was exactly what I was looking for, but unfortunately the surfing is not easy to do here. There's Zicatello, which is kind of really it's like heavy. You got to be really good. And then there's La Punta, where it's just so full of people and surf schools and stuff like that. And then there's just another little one, which again is full of people. So I looked at it and I said, nah, I think I'll just take this time off. I traveled and surfed. I went like a little bit north, a little bit south.
We heard that was the thing to do. I wanted to rent a bike. Just gonna let these new people in here. But Layla wasn't into it. She didn't want me driving around on a bike in Mexican traffic. So
yeah, I mean,
you hear lots doing it though.
She's like, lots of horror stories.
Yeah, well, it was crazy. It was super crazy. We took those little, like, you go on those like trucks. I can't remember what they call them, but they're kind of
Collectivo.
What do you call it?
Collectivo.
Yeah, the Collectivos. Those were crazy too. Just hanging off the back of them. Yeah.
I take them almost every day. When I go to get my groceries, I hop on the back of one of those to go out and then back.
Yeah, those are fun. They were exciting to say the least. This is great. Devin and Philip here. This is awesome. Philip, nice to see you. Nice to see Devin too. Michaela. Hey, Devin.
Hey, Devin, are you related to Jeff Seegers?
Not at all. Maybe, actually. I'm open to it. Make the introduction.
You kind of look like a guy I went to high school with named Jeff Seegers.
No way. Where are you from?
Kelowna.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm from, too.
I've heard of Stranger.
Yeah, that could be a long lost link.
A long lost link for sure. You're out in New York, right, Devin? For sure. What part of New York are you in? Michaela.
Oh, Michaela.
Hey, what's up?
Energy gets charged up 30%.
Yeah, totally. The master battery.
Hey, welcome, Devon. Nice.
Yeah.
Some familiar faces. Okay.
It's nice to see Devin back. How you been, man?
I've been great. The conflicts in scheduling have happened for the past little bit, and I'm like, yes, I'm making this happen.
Nice, fantastic. Nice to have you back hanging out. It's always a pleasure.
Seems like this
Yep.
year's happening.
You living in New York?
Yeah.
Damn.
New York.
That's a city I'm afraid to live in.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not in the city. I enjoy visiting the city and then promptly leaving. I'm upstate. I've got a beautiful state park near me. I have mountains. I go take this little angel out and we go hiking.
Mm.
Okay.
Solid
different-
strategy. Yeah. That works for London too. But by the way, this is getting very US based, this group.
Well, we're
Okay, America based. Sorry.
the American continent.
Continent. Okay, yeah.
Canada is one of the United States.
Mm. Oh, thanks.
You wish.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks.
Guys, I'm excited for this. And someone yesterday, a coach and a peer, reached out and she reached out about video editing. And I was like, you're a badass transformational coach. Why are you reaching out to do video editing for me? And she's like, money's tight. And I was like, have you heard of this? And
Nice.
I'm just so excited. I invited her into this. And I'm just so excited because like there are so many people sharing the marketing and like this totally different approach, and it can work. And this one just feels so much more simple and human and real, and nothing worked until I started with this. So I'm like,
Yeah, man. Yeah,
get
I
in there.
100%. I love that endorsement right there. That's so true. It's so true. That's actually why I really like this one. Oh, why is my second page not loading here? Why I like this. There we go. I really like this chapter we're about to do because I find that it digs in so deep into that minutia that, in my opinion, is like turns the corner on why one of the reasons why it's so effective compared to other marketing situations. So it looks like this is probably we got the boys group today, which is cool. So let's just shift into it and see what happens. Let's see what happens when this is a pretty powerhouse group, so let's see what happens. Layla might, yeah, totally dream team 100%. Okay, so I'm gonna just actually, before I dive into it, did everyone get a chance to read the email? No, you didn't check it out, Devin? You didn't get a chance? Okay, Philip, you got a chance? Michaela, you get a chance?
This is the only one I couldn't manage to read. I was in calls all day.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's cool. That's fine. Okay, let's just jump into it. I'm gonna that gives me more fodder, I guess, off the front end. I can just kind of talk about this a bit. Let's just go through it, see what happens. So, what I really dig about this is, if this is gonna share it for me, cool. So, drop the phony stuff. I think this is really, like how Devin, you were saying, like this marketing thing. Oh, Alexis, cool. This is a new. Is this your friend? Nice. Cool. Okay, let's see if she jumps in here. Alexis, nice to meet you. See if she just jump in. Maybe she'll be just hanging out. So what I like about this chapter is how real it is, and also how kind of the minutia starts to really come into play, which makes the Prosperous Coach so important to me. So we'll just talk, I'll just read it out. So I like to coach people with radical and provocative metaphors. I use them to wake people up to what's possible when they are willing to connect with another person. So obviously, willing to connect with another person, I think, is your major highlighting part of that sentence. Most coaches waste time communicating without really making a meaningful connection. And I think that this happens that sentence I think happens a lot, not just in the sense of coaching. I think this happens all the time. So I'm actually just going to stop it there because I think there's an assumption that you could easily find in this one sentence, which is, what is meaningful connection? So if we have words, and we use words to connect with people, is that where meaningful connection comes from? Is from the words that we're using? They say something like 80% of language is lost in translation. That really we pick up a lot on body language and energy and feeling from other people. So if coaches or people are wasting time communicating without making a meaningful connection, where is the divergence? And what would you consider to be the divergence? So I'd love if you guys kind of just weighed in on this one thing. We're going to do the classic Prosperous Coach thing. We're going to read one sentence and then we're going to talk about it. So I would love, what do you guys, can you unpack that for me? What do you think meaningful connection means to you?
I think
Yeah, we'll
there's
go with the hand raising, but we'll go with Devin because he kind of that was like a physical and then icon raise. So yeah, go for it, Devin.
I'll go with it. Yeah, it confirms something that I naturally have been doing or that I have normalized in my calls, but I realized that I set up the call in that way. And I'll say things like, yeah, essentially, like, I'm not here to be your friend. Like, at the end of this, if we don't make some powerful decisions, this is just going to be another cute conversation with some friendly guy on the internet. And like, that's cool, but I don't think that's really why you're here. So I like always kind of tee it up and talk about other experiences that they may have had. And it's like, you've been on sales calls. This is not like that. You may have had other experiences, but let's actually get into it. And one of the questions that I'll ask is basically like, what's the gnarliest thing that we could get into? What's maybe the last thing that you want to put on the table? Let's focus on what really matters.
I think that's fantastic. I think that even where did you come up with that strategy?
Somewhat intuitively, somewhat from a mentor. Okay, so yeah, this will be hopefully valuable for everyone. I had, again, like, throw out all of the old D Brunson, my funnels and stuff like that. And I had a mentor that I really resonated with, and he taught me how to run calls in a way that I actually really clicked with. And he said there's one core phrase that you want to install, and it's this is how these calls go. It's a very short phrase, but it's a positioning of like, there's a lot in that. This is how these calls go. Yeah, this is a regular thing. This is how it works around here. This is not my first call. And then in that, you're kind of like, one of the ways to set up the call, not much needs to be said, but it's like, hey, obviously I do this for a living, and there are ways that we can work together. For right now, like, forget that even exists. My intention is not just to sell you on something. We can get there when if and when that's right. But like, let's focus on something that really matters for right now.
So would you kind of say that there's communication, there's like the social communication, like what you're saying, and also I kind of feel like you're speaking to the sum totality of this chapter, like the kind of being like there's a big distinction here between the social kind of conversation that we could be having, the lunch, coffee, dinner conversation, and then these powerful conversations. So would you kind of say that distinction is what creates meaningful conversation? Is that kind of like where the divergence is?
I think it allows for it because it frames the experience in a specific way. Here's the context. We don't need to dwell on it, but like this is where we're stepping into.
That makes me, I'm gonna jump to Jamie here in a second too. That makes me think of when I was really teaching music lessons a lot, I would really make sure that when the kids came in, they put their jacket on the hook, they like took out their binder. There was a whole series of actions that was like, you have to do all these every single time because that's what we do around here. And then that instantly put them into the state where they're no longer in the state that they were before, which was like hanging out with their parents or coming from school or something. Now they're in the drum lesson, and that kind of created this the proper sanctions, I guess you would say, for learning. And if they went and sat down with the drum kit with their jacket on, I'd be like, whoa, like there's no, put your jacket away, take out your binder, put it on the stand, don't play the drums until I tell you to. And that would kind of create this just this situation where they did one thing after another, and then they were led into this kind of reality. So, and then it was a lot more meaningful for them. There was a certain structure, a certain context, kind of like, is that track with what you're kind of saying? Yeah. Jamie.
Thanks, Devin, for sharing that. For me, I think that the emotional connection that was referred to in the first sentence, I think it can be common on a social call and a coaching call, because I think the thing that has to happen first in the best of both of those types is feeling heard. It's kind of a cliche, but if I walk into a coaching session and in the first little bit, I get a lot of instruction, but I'm not, after a few minutes, I'm not feeling like they know me uniquely or are trying to in the first little bit. Everything they say is going to be a little, I guess, skewed, because I still am trying to project myself and be understood. Hopefully, once I'm understood, it's built upon that. So I believe that would be the first thing. And the most important thing is to ensure that your client, in this case, feels like, one, you're listening and establishing a basis of understanding to build upon for growth.
So, okay. I kind of like to push that a little bit further and understand. So I like that as you as the client, especially in a coaching situation, how would you spin that, say, if you are, since you're an entrepreneur yourself, how would, say, making a meaningful connection with a client on your end, or say making a meaningful connection in general, like how do you see that working? Is it a similar kind of situation? I just kind of like to hear it from your words.
Actually, no. That's one of the things that I thought of when you asked us to think about how it connected in your email. And there has to at some point be, I think, a split between coaching and a social call, or in my case, a business call, because the business call is relationship based. I am their friend. They do business with me because we are equals, because we feel like we're aligned. But I have a hunch that as a client, I'm not going into coaching for another friend. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to find somebody who's got it either a little bit more figured out or can expand it. So that's why the idea of a separation between the social and the coaching mentality makes perfect sense to me. But it doesn't align with business. Business is in the social and the friendly part, right? We're equals. Coaching is not. You have to, I think, establish that you're, I don't know, I don't want to say like better at it than them or higher up or in understanding or anything like that, but they have to feel that, a mentor, right? It's definitely mentor based, whereas business to business transactions, I wouldn't say are really mentor based.
Okay, I have a few interesting things like that there's some distinctions in there I would like to kind of like put forward. One of them is, so say like I'm going to use a construction analogy here, but I know that you're not like in construction. You've done construction-based things, but say someone was like, I really want to put this sink in here in this part of the house, you know. Let's imagine they're talking to a plumber, not even talking to, and the plumber could say to them, like on a friendly kind of manner, like, yeah, for sure, like let's do that. Like we'll figure out a way to make that happen. And then, you know, in a business sense, then you have to go through, say, so many hoops to get to that spot. When you knew as a plumber that bringing pipe to that part of the house or creating that, fitting it into that area or whatever was just a bad idea. So being able to be like, hey, wait a minute, like this is a bad idea. I know that you want to do this and this is part of like, say, your dream here, but as the professional in this situation, I'm just going to say that the reality that you want to create doesn't really track with the reality of what's available to you, and making that saying those words being a distinction between two different levels of success for a company, for an entrepreneur. Because some entrepreneurs that I've found are very much yes people. And they'll always say yes, and then they'll try to fix it in the background, you know? Because it's very hard to say to the client, hey, that doesn't work, you know? And would you agree? Does that happen? Am I putting something?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's my responsibility to use some of my knowledge to guide them in the right direction. But I would say that's closer to advice between friends than transformative. Right?
Okay.
We're expecting more from coaching than you know, guiding people through you know, kind of basic business decisions.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to demean the coaching industry. So Chandler actually says in the Prosperous Coach and in other places that coaching is a blue collar job. So where a lot of people would be like, oh, coaching has this certain element to it, like mentorship or leadership qualities. It does have these qualities. But it's kind of like dreams are dreams are dreams are dreams are dreams. It's kind of like how I look at it, you know? So if someone's like, I really want this sink in this part of my house, you know? And they have a certain dream about that, whether that dream is a reality in that particular way, for a plumber to be able to tell them, hey, that's going to work, the methodology you have there is going to work, or hey, that's not going to work, we have to take a different route, we have to somehow realize your dreams in a different kind of way. And basically all I'm trying to say is that sometimes that there's difficult conversations to have in any of those industries where you're kind of having to create these distinctions where you have to, rather than being like, okay, that's cool, or and pass by this little moment where a change can occur, and the change is useful to the person because otherwise it's not going to work out the way they want it to work out. That's what kind of connects the different industries together. Is what I was kind of trying to pose in that moment. It's the same thing with like your kids or something like that, or like your students. Where they're like, oh, I want to do this, but you're like, we're going to have to find a different route to that, or I'm going to have to be very upfront with you about kind of not necessarily a reality, but like a difficult set of words that you could choose not to say. Does that? I want to see.
Perhaps a common question could be, how bad do you want it?
True. Exactly. Like, yeah, for sure. Like, we could really run all this pipe and we could do all this work. Like, is this how much do you honestly want that? And what does Devin say? The client, yeah, like this is good. I feel like this is what I want to get into, because even in this conversation, we have to be real with each other and make these really fine distinctions to be like, hey, see how these things are actually the same? See how coaching is not this like pie in the sky guru, I'm the shaman that's going to change your life kind of thing. Just the same way as like, I can't make your kitchen like the best kitchen, like, there's going to be certain limitations, even though they're not limitations, that's not like the right word, but we have to find your actual prerogative, I guess. Okay, so everyone, obviously I want to be challenged in this, but can you see kind of what I'm getting at?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm probably it's because I'm really, really tired. It's pretty late. Like I had calls all day, but I never felt as stupid as in this in this Zoom session. Like there's my brain fighting. But I know the coach, so you know that. So yeah, make it explain some things to me. Like when you say about the divergence, that distinctions, I know, I get it. In what you were saying now, for example, like when you say how bad you want it, like how bad you want it, you the coach, how bad you want it, you the client, how bad you want the sink, how bad you want it there. No, I don't know. I was even relating to calls that I had very recently with clients, in coaching space. Like, what if the client tells you, okay, you want the sink? Okay, I'm a plumber. I'm gonna put you the sink. Okay, but I want it there. Can it be there in the center of the house? I don't know. Is it doable or not? Okay, explain to me why you want it there. What's the vision of this sink there? Or it's because it's gonna make the house a peaceful space. Okay, is that true or not? Let's dig into it. But also, is it doable? I don't know. It's a lot to unpack there. And then, as you said, like, no. It's you can be the kind of plumber who says, I'm gonna do everything that's possible to put the sink there. But you can be the kind of plumber or coach, I don't know, that says, the way I work, for what you're telling me, the sink there makes no sense. I'm gonna make it understand to you, but if you don't understand it, fuck it. I don't know if this makes any sense. Sorry, I probably lost in the plumber space. I got lost a bit, but
I'm loving this. It's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation, because I'm just going to share this again. And I love it because it makes me feel uncomfortable, which is so fantastic. Guys, it says, drop the phony stuff.
Yeah.
So like I have found for myself, at least in the different industries that I've worked in, that the phony stuff seems to really create a certain level of business. And that level of business can be things like staying in your comfort zone in terms of communication, staying in comfort zone in terms of like what you could create or your methods for creating. Like if you're used to, they say the person's like, I really want this sink here. And they say that to you. I'm going to keep using the plumber concept. And that is after you've created the budget for the job. So now you have to have a difficult conversation about, okay, well, that's going to cost, this X amount of money and all these kinds of things. And you could either choose to have that conversation, slow things down, be like, okay, wait a minute for a second. Like, okay, I hear what you're saying, and that's great that you want to do that. But it's going to cost X amount more money, and we're going to have to do all these extra things. And it's going to, it's going to take much longer to do it. And have that, what could be a difficult conversation that might be deflating for the client, or they might be angry that it's going to take more time. Maybe they're a difficult client in general. Or you can go, okay, well, we'll just work faster. We'll cut other corners without telling them so that we can get this done, rather than having that difficult conversation that's like, hey, these are the real elements that are going to be involved in this situation. So in that, and then what I'm kind of saying is that there could be a meaningful connection that's created from that. If you say to the client for the sink, hey, this is going to cost more money. This is going to be a situation. We could do it. Is this really part of your dream? And get more into the situation with them. A meaningful connection might be created. They might be like, oh, wow, this person's really authentic about how much this could cost. This doesn't make me feel good, but at least now I know the situation for what it really is. Or you could skirt past that and it'd be more social and be like, oh yeah, for sure, we can help you. So, and to me, that's another level of business. And I've seen a lot of people as entrepreneurs not take that next level of business because even like Devin was saying, they don't start the context off in a way that's professional. Maybe they start the context off by being willing to undercut themselves in the initial negotiations, very simply, they don't set themselves up as a professional who, though they want to have a connection with the client, still has certain boundaries and there's a certain context involved. And to me, that's the difference between people who are very prosperous in their job, and not just prosperous in terms of money, but in terms of time and a kind of mobility in the industry. Yeah, Devin.
Yeah. Side thought is, I don't know if this, speaking of provocative metaphors, I don't know if the plumber one is a helpful one. At least I'm
Yeah,
not
great.
helpful.
Please save me.
Yeah. I don't like, I want to bring it back to like what we can use on our next call.
Okay.
And because like we're all in this place of we're probably gonna have a call with someone, if not this week, like shortly. This distinction around the willingness to connect. And then that next line is like, we're wasting time communicating. And I love this because it's pointing at like the volume of communication does not equate the depth of connection. And what I find some useful things whenever I'm going into a session, especially an initial session, is I want to empty myself out. I want to show up empty. And then another phrase that really helps me is I show up with nothing to prove and nothing to hide. And it's not about me communicating, here's all the badass stuff I've done, here's how all the things that, like we've had those pitches where you're like, all right, cool. But it's like whenever I show up, it's nothing to prove, nothing to hide. I'm empty. Yes, I cue it up in a certain way where it's like, here's the frame. This is how we do things around here. But that's also, it's all enabling you to go, this time is entirely for you. What's the real reason we're here? How do we make this the most useful time for you? It's like all them focused.
Totally. To be able to use for them to be the guide, to be the real, like it's their wisdom that's guiding the call.
Yeah, not like you're trying to prove, like if Neil, if you got on and for 10 minutes you were going through your lengthy ass resume, because I know it is extensive, and we'd all be like, wow, yeah, Neil's cool. Like we already thought that. Like we already knew that.
What does that do for me? Yeah, exactly. True.
Yeah.
No, it's absolutely true. You're absolutely right, man. It's I 100% agree. It's the focus is not on you. The focus is on or what your path. Like it says further on in the book, which connects to this, is people don't care about your credentials. They care if you can help them. And I'm also going to say, just because I need to continue, I feel like I want to continually reinvigorate this idea, is that that's like an extension into all service-based experiences. They're like, that's great, you've done all this stuff, but can you actually do something for me? You know, like I like that there's this support of what you've done, but can you actually help me? And that is that meaningful connection, like you're saying. Rather than being like, blah, 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 I have all this stuff I've done, blah, 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 blah. Is that going to create the meaningful connection? Probably not. Okay, I felt like we got too deep, too quick. Let's keep going. One of the coaches in a prior school I ran had an $18,000 month. She used to have months that were closer to 3,000, but one way she improved her billings was by ruling out lunch, dinner, and coffee as options for that first meeting with the coaching prospect. So like you're kind of saying, narrowing down the context. These options are from 1950s sales books that say you should first get to know someone socially. You know, like we talked about, like one of my favorite books actually is How to Make Friends and Influence People. But does it work with coaching? Is it also the most powerful way to work with the client? I don't know. But the truth is that it actually diminishes the chances you'll land a coaching client if you had lunch with them first and establish your relationship as a social one. Oh. Come on, computer. What are you doing? I've lost you. Devin, you know what? Devin, you have the book. So while my computer is like figuring itself out.
I'll take on.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this is like my favorite part of the chapter.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. Perfect.
It's like, okay, get rid of the cute stuff. Get rid of like, hey, you want to do coffee? Okay. The truth is that it actually diminishes your chances that you'll land a coaching client if you have lunch with them first and establish your relationship as a social one. What do you do instead? Throw them in the slammer. Get a small room in a tin warehouse by the waterfront with a single light bulb hanging from a frayed wire in the ceiling and one small table and 2 metal chairs and go full Mossad on them. Or whatever your version of that would be.
Yeah, well, do you want to? Okay, since this is your favorite part of the chapter, can you speak on it for us?
That's exactly what I pointed. I've never done exactly that. Alexis, hello. It's when I said like, hey, I'm sure we could talk about a bunch of different things. I'm sure we're kindred spirits. I'm sure we could have a really fun conversation, but I don't think you're here to just have another cute conversation. So like, what is the real reason we're here? It's those kinds of things that I like. It's just a sentence, but it feels like it frames it up where it's like, this isn't just coffee. We can do that. I'm sure we would be great friends if we went out to coffee. But let's like roll up our sleeves and dig into this.
I absolutely agree. And then say to just to push that a little bit further, because that's like the initial reaction. How do you create that in, say you're deep in the conversation and it's going one way? What are some of the way, but you know that it's not the most effective conversation that you could be having at that time. And say the client is talking, you know what I mean? They're like, this is, and they're going in this direction, they're thinking, and they're putting things together, but you know that even though they're putting things together in that way, it's not the most beneficial way for them to beneficial situation or conversation for them to be having with you. There's a conversation that has more bang for its buck somewhere in there. What do you do? Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Anybody else who wants to, I'm also trying to say this is for coaching, but I'm also saying that this is for any situation. So if you're somewhere with people and you could be, and people like blah, 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 and you're like, yeah, But if I go this way and get in your face about this thing,
So I think that also comes from when, like I mentioned before, do I have permission to coach you? And I'll give them a few cues of what that might look like. It's like if I hear you going, do I have permission to stop you? If I feel like that, do I have permission to just like speak my truth and be really blunt and honest? And these kinds of tools to frame it up. But if someone's just going off into story, I'll just be like, hey, I want to pause you right there. And sometimes I'll like paint the two paths. Hey, we can totally go down that. We can continue going there. I think we've discussed that already, and I'm just sure like that's something that is a common road for you. I'm happy to go down there with you. And I want to also point out another direction that we could go that I think would be more useful for you. And then I give it back to them. It's like, where would you like to go with this?
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I like that. Do you find yourself, just before I want to talk to Jamie too, and I'm obviously you're a fantastic coach, Devin, and you're so professional, bro. Do you find do you find yourself in other situations where you would utilize those tools in a permission-based way? Would you use the same language? Like say
No, it's a little bit more.
as a producer or something like that.
Oh, okay. So it's different context. If I'm social context, there's a softening to it that I've had to learn because like the bluntness doesn't work out in the wild.
I like
So
that. Wow.
yeah, out in the wild, casual things like I'll hint to it and I'll just be like, oh, like I have some insights around that, or like I have some few thoughts around that, like if you're interested in hearing.
I
And
like
I'll
that.
get them to opt in, essentially.
And
Uh,
and would you consider, I don't know how much production work you're doing for other people right now, but would you consider like out in the wild to be like also your production kind of work
about to
now?
get in.
Pardon?
Yeah, so I'm experiencing this right now. I'm on the third song with someone who wants to do a full album together. And it's the same kind of context, but maybe there is another level of clarity that it could bring into the studio. For instance, this last track that we're doing, it sounds awesome. And there's this one phrase in this end of the second verse, and it doesn't sound right. We've tried tracking it over and over and over again, and I think it's just the part. And I ended up just being really honest with him, and I'm like, part of the reason why you pay me the way you do, and the reason that we're working here is because you trust my ear. So as much as it's hard for me to say that doesn't sound good, like think about all the other times that I've said that. I don't. So I reserve it for when I really don't think something sounds right.
Okay,
And I always give it back to them and I say, at the end of the day, you always have director's cut. I just have to let you know that like something about that doesn't feel right.
beautiful. And the way that you just said it there, is that, so to me, that sounds like much more wordy than you when you're a coach. So was that you just kind of rendering your thought as you're going, or is that really like, do you feel like you want to have that much kind of like padding in the studio?
I'm definitely softer in the studio, and I
Do you
beat around.
think that is the reason why I ask is just for this whole thing? Do you find that is the most useful? Like, do you think that the person could handle if you were like, hey, this part it's kind of trash? Like,
I
would
do.
they be like, would they
I do.
hate you for it? Would they?
No, I think he would take it fine, especially with the people that I work with. My intentions are different. I think when I'm coming into a coaching conversation, the idea is like this is about conscious confrontation or compassionate confrontation. Like, hey, let's look at the stuff that's not working. And in the studio, my intention is always to create this like it's a creative sanctuary. It's like this is very safe. Let's explore anything. You're good here. Like it's already vulnerable enough to sing, let alone sing in front of someone, let alone sing in front of a mic. So it's like it's much more it's a tender, nurturing vibe for me. Whether that's right or not, I don't know.
Oh, I'm not really looking at things in terms of right or wrong. I'm more looking at like distilled levels. I'm like, where are the kind of connecting tissue between all these things? How do you need to filter? Do you need to soften? Is it the same skill set, but a little bit like, a little rounder, like
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
huh?
Okay, so what I've found is there are a lot of people that are very direct. The client that I had before in the studio said that her last experience would leave her crying every time that she went to the studio.
Mm.
And then they ended up with the crappy recordings anyways. I was like, wow, if it made you feel terrible and they gave you that as the output, like, come over here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So,
Yeah. So
but,
what I
but
would rather do instead of being like, man, that sucked, I'd be like, I think you have a better take in you. Let's do that again.
so great. So it's still a certain level of maybe like insistence, like continuing to push them forward. But I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I ask because I like to know the nuance. I find that, um, and that's very forward. I think that a lot of people listening to this would find that useful. Jamie, I would love to hear from you.
I want to add something onto it. Is it, Devin, like, what makes you think people would be less vulnerable in coaching than they would be in music production?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. It feels like it feels like the directness serves someone more in a coaching conversation.
Do you
They're
think that
both very vulnerable situations.
does the intent of them coming into coaching, maybe to expand upon success? Do you feel like they're in a different place than somebody who's going in for music?
I don't know. I'm going to sit with that one.
Okay.
Yes, that is
if-
fantastic. There's a level of discomfort in this conversation. I love it.
I'm here for it. That's great.
Yeah.
That's what I originally put my hand up for, is that room that they describe sounds uncomfortable. And so I think that the difference between the social and the coaching is that Devin is willing to, and I'm going to use you as the example, is to stop them and to move them back into the uncomfortable. When they start to go off onto their tangent that's comfortable and they can get lost in it because it's a known element. You guide them back to where it's uncomfortable, because on the other side of that discomfort is sometimes like incredible honesty, because they don't have time to think about it. It doesn't go into their patterns. And you know who taught me this? Neil. So I think it's about discomfort, and I think it ties to everything that you said.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant distinction, and I was completely blind to it.
I also, just to kind of, so for me as a studio musician and a producer, arranger, composer, from that perspective, the producer to me is the guy who's like, no. And like, I'm going to him because like I produce my own records. I have a producer though coming in for my next record. He's a Grammy award-winning producer, and I want him in the studio because he knows jazz music so well that I want him to be like, no, that's not a good take. Like, no, that's not going to make it on the record. That's not going to make it on the record label. You're not going to get signed with that kind of crap. You know what I mean? And I am a great musician, but I need somebody who's going to want the absolute best out of me. And in the same situation with the coaching situation, it's co-creation. Like I'm going into a coaching session, not in a different way than a therapy session. Like in a therapy session, I'm going in to, work through all my baggage, all this stuff that's held me back. When I'm really going into a coaching session, a high power coaching session, I'm going there to create the future. When I'm going into a high powered studio session, I'm going in there to get famous. Like I'm going into the coaching session to get $1 million. Like like, you know what I mean? Like that's what a CEO does. You know, like they're going to a coaching session because they're running a $500 million a year company and they want to make, you know, $1 billion a year. Like, right? They're co-creating on that level. And it's the same thing in the studio. Like Rick Rubin is telling Kanye West, that's not a song that goes on his album. Like that's a song you give to someone else, you know? So like to me, there's a certain, that's where this like drop the phony stuff is. Like where there's like, and there's little moments along the way where you could decide, oh, I could just let that go. You know, I could let them keep talking, or I could let them write that song, or I could let them have that lick, or you know what I mean? Or I could let my student not pick the sticks all the way up, or I could make sure I could not get them to press the string down all the way, you know? But it's when you're like, no, we're coming back to this again. Because this little spot right here, I'm putting you in jail. You're gonna go in jail. I'm gonna put this light on top of you, and I'm gonna say, right there, that's the shit you need to figure out. You know, and that's to me what happens when I'm but to do it, that's why I wrote in the email, a loving producer. You put him in a loving jail. You don't put him in a harsh jail like the jail you're talking about, like without other people, or they just screwed up their record and made them feel like crap. You want to put them in a jail where you're like, okay, so really? Is this really what you think? Is this really what you want? Is this really the level of art you want to create? Is this really the level of life you want to create? Is this really the level of success you want? Is this really the relationships that you want in your life? And the person's like, well, maybe we could do it again. You know what I mean? And then you're like, okay, because I love you. You know, like, I love you. It's like Steve Hardison. Does Nick talk to you about Steve Hardison, his conversation with Steve Hardison? Steve Hardison screamed at Nick for 15 minutes on the phone. He screamed at him. The way that Nick explained it was that it was like he trashed his ego and then tried to dig it out by the root. You know, like just tried to get that thing all the way out. And Nick said that he would go off the phone with him and that it was the first time in his life where his mind was completely silent. And he didn't even realize how silent his mind was until the thoughts started to come back. And like, I think that that's true across all industry. Like, obviously that's really heavy. That's peer coaching, you know? But when someone's like, don't play that lick, or don't put that sync there, or like, you're not being the person you could be right now, or, you know, like, you're not running your company in a way that's most effective for you. And I could choose not to emphasize that. You know, I could choose to move on and not look at that little niggle. Anyways, is that kind of track with what you were saying, Jamie? Is that kind of like, I know that was a little bit of a tear on my end, but.
I think we're on the same page. I think we're all dancing around it, and I just threw out a word that fit. We're all saying the same thing.
Yeah, and I'm loving this conversation again, just to say it because like, this is my phony stuff. And this chapter to me is what really is a big separator. It's like, wow, I had so much bullshit. Michaela.
No, that's great, guys. I think this will be the one session in which I really like say 2 words and that's it. I'm really taking all this in. This is fucking great, guys. I'm taking a ton of notes. But this is really interesting because me being a musician myself, you know, many years in this session recordings, ton of stuff, and now also working with coaches. I'm not a coach again. I do social media for coaches, for people that don't know. But I don't know. I was thinking, I mean, you already touched on this, but it's really see also the what's accepted and not culturally in different areas, contexts, professions. Because in the music world, this probably touches with what Jimmy was saying in the beginning, like businesses relationship based, and definitely probably the world from the 50s that was described in the page. And music industry is that. You fuck up one relationship, you're gonna be careful because it's so. And I guess in the producing world, you even mentioned Rick Rubin. How would he put it? Because I'm sure it does transformational stuff. At least how he describes his work. But I guess the most blunt stuff, the most thin warehouse with one light bulb kind of stuff, will probably does with the bands he knows for 20 years, probably with Red Hot and the other guys, maybe not with a new client or with some other people that are, that wouldn't allow for that. So that seems so the question really that comes is, okay, but if the whole music industry, there's many musicians here, probably all of us, I don't know. If the whole music industry was like coaching, I don't know, is it even possible? Would it be better? I don't know. I'm even thinking for myself because I come from, solid, tough calls with some clients, kind of really, I was relating a lot to what you were saying, guys. Like, if you put the person that comes to you into the team warehouse with one light bulb, you go full Mossad. They don't like that at all. Do you go even more Mossad? Do you go a bit less? You allow for some space, and there's of course the spacing. There's knowing better the person. There's even different approaches to different people in different areas. Or you just go full Mossad. Now you're at a level of coaching or in your business, and you just say, you know what? I'm gonna go full Mossad. Fuck you. I'm qualifying you. I only want people that go full Mossad. Okay, this is my 2 cents, guys.
I think that's so brilliant, guys. Yeah, and I really want to also emphasize the loving element of it. And I want to keep going, but I do want to touch on that music thing because that is one thing I've always noticed in the music industry is that people who otherwise could be great aren't always called out on their bullshit. And like a quick story about that is recently some people that I was playing with, one of the players did get lovingly called out on his bullshit by like an elder player. And man, that person has shown up in a completely different way since then, just so much more professional on the gig, shows up so much earlier, so much more ready to participate in the community element of it. Like they saw their own bullshit, then their bullshit was called on them and it validated. They're like, oh yeah, it's true. It like what they were struggling with was seen by someone else. The musician who called them out on it was an older musician, and he did it in a very loving and graceful way. He could have just attacked, you know what I mean? He had that level of respect, and I'm sure he could do it, you know what I mean? He could have made the guy feel horrible, but he chose not to. He chose to very lovingly throw him in the slammer and point out the exact things that he did, and then also said why he was upset about them, and it was phenomenal. And I wish more players would do that, because I see sometimes for me it almost creates an anxiety. It's a very West Coast thing that I've been told. Like East Coast players in America seem to be a lot more like hard nosed. They'll point things out, but there is, at least on the West Coast, this kind of ambiguity of socialness and reputation, and everyone wants to be liked. And then unfortunately that doesn't serve the music because it doesn't really make for people getting called out and then going and getting better. There's almost like we just won't play with that person anymore. There's like an estranging of people, which is unhealthy in any industry, I find. anyway, so this is I feel like this is exactly what I wanted to see out of this conversation. So I really want to thank you guys for, man, how courageous you're being in this situation, how vulnerable. So, but you must create a clearing in which transformation has a chance to happen. I want to come back to that, but I'm just going to read a little bit more. If you just have lunch, they will never feel the value of coaching. They'll just think you're an amiable, affable, social person who is fun to chat with, but why pay big bucks for that? So this is so I also think that people, myself included, have a much different idea of what does big bucks mean to you. You know? Like, you could be doing things on an amiable, affable, social level and be making a pretty good amount of money. And it also has a lot to do with what you think money is for. So if you think money is to kind of indulge your own senses or your own experience or create security for you, like that's your level of understanding of money, then maybe the amount of money you're making as an amiable, affable, social person is enough. But what he's saying here, I think, really ties together. Like, what is big bucks for you? You know, say you want to make you want to make $500,000 a year. Can you make $500,000 a year as an amiable, affable, social person, or do you have to really cut to the root of things? I'm not sure. That's kind of what we can talk about. Most of the mistakes failed coaches make are of the information manipulation variety. Lots of marketing and social media posts, lots of learning about branding and niches, lots of trying to win friends and influence people. None of it works ever in the world of coaching. Now, obviously, there's this word coaching, but I kind of want to just specify that I feel like this is true in any elite level industry. And that can be elite in any level of industry. Because coaching changes lives, which is, I think, what everything does. Therefore, all the shallow, people-pleasing forms of sales manipulation are inappropriate. In fact, they are off-putting. But this is actually good news for most of us who hate that activity. So I just want to go back, because I wanted just a little bit of context. So what do you guys think this means by you must create a clearing in which transformation can occur? What is that? And even to be a little bit further in it, say it was to, we took out the word transformation for a second and we said, but you must create a clearing in which meaningful connection has a chance to happen. Nice. I love Jamie. You're just on fire, bro. Can you?
I think the title of the chapter answers that, doesn't it? All that other stuff's getting in the way. You got to clear all of that crap out of the way for your purpose.
Fantastic. So there's all this other. So what is that? Can we just for a second? I want to try and be vulnerable, but two here. What does what kind of crap are we clearing out of the way?
Getting
I
straight
think
to the. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. I was
Let's
just
hear
starting
Philip
it.
because he's hasn't said much, and then I want to go back to Jamie here. But yeah.
I've been quiet. Sorry about that. Yeah. It's like the, British kind of, hello, how are you? Yes, it's good. How's the weather? How's your mother? How's your aunt? Nobody really gives a shit. Like, let's get to the point, And that's what I feel about this part of this chapter. It's a bit sort of saying how, oh, I'll take you out for dinner. It's like I kind of want to wine and dine you. It's like, no, you want to fuck me, really?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I hear that.
Get to the point. Get to the point. So yeah, that's what I'm kind of feeling. But yeah.
Okay. So would you kind of say that it's like clearing everything out of the way is getting to your true intentions in the conversation?
Exactly. Getting to the true intentions. And here the intentions are, as the coach, I don't want to be faffing around. I want to get to the valuable stuff and help have that impact, change lives, right?
Okay, great. And then how, because you are a fantastic piano player and teacher, so how does that work with teaching or with performing? Can you connect that? I know you also coach too, but can you connect it to some adjacent?
I don't think I would say I coach. Maybe I coach friends and family, but I don't coach in a professional manner at the moment, not yet. How would I connect it with teaching? I think on the surface level, I don't know how, but I incorporate some degree of coaching in my teaching, sort of as mindset, I think, as part of the lesson. You know, when you're teaching an instrument, sometimes it's like you just notice something and you're like, I think this is more of a mental thing, a mental block than actually a technical block. Right? Yeah.
And then do you kind of throw them in the slammer and talk about that mental block, or do you talk around it? Do you go directly at it? Like, do you say like, "Hey, your mindset around this is bullshit," like, or like, you know what I mean? Like, do you have some type of?
Uh, I think up until starting Domino, I didn't really think of coaching. I never really saw coaching and teaching as two separate things. Now I see them as two separate things. Teaching is conveying, like, circle of fifths, major minor chords, whatever. And then coaching is the psychology that kind of goes above that, the mindset. Um, and since learning this idea in Domino, I've been applying it in the sense that I do actually ask my students, sort of, I think I've noticed something. Can I ask you a question? Can I dig a little bit deeper? It seems to me that, or is this correct? That uh, I've had some success, but not. It doesn't always hit. Sometimes it's a bit like mining for a diamond, and you don't hit it.
And nice, and you use kind of like a permission based um style, like Devin was talking about.
I'm trying to more so, yeah, little by little.
Do you find that they open up when you're kind of going with that?
It depends really on the student. It depends. I was having a conversation with Will Lutchford from our Domino today, and that's one of the things that we were talking about. It's how, like, if somebody's not coachable, there's no point kind of having a conversation. I was describing how it's funny because I think one of my best teachers is my mum. She's so stubborn. And when it comes to kind of trying to coach her, and I'm like, Mom, do this. Like, this is so obvious. Like, you know, I just say something that's really obvious to me, but it's just like the resistance, the wall just comes right up, and then it's like there's no penetrating it. So I think it depends on, like, I consider myself extremely coachable. Like, I'm like, help me. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Please help me out. I really appreciate it. Like, no ego in it. Like, if you point out my weakest flaw, I'll thank you for it. Seriously, like, zero ego. But a lot of people, if you point out their biggest flaw, they'll take it as a criticism.
Okay, so and I like this a lot in the sense that um what it makes me think of is that, and maybe you can weigh in on this too, Devin, is that one of the ways of creating a clearing is to ask for permission. Yeah.
Few thoughts on this. Just like you would walk into a professional setting like a dentist or a surgeon, it's not like you meet a surgeon. I think this is in the book, right? It's not like you meet a surgeon at a dinner party and you're like, well, actually, like my knee's been giving me problems, and they just start like cutting you open at the dinner table. It's like, no, there's a process to this. and coaching happens here, but I also recognize like the way that I frame up coaching is also, or like my initial session with someone is also part of the actual session. And it's like the pre-conversation, the intake form, the hey, this is going to be 2 hours and it's going to be deep, and please don't schedule anything for the next hour so that you can actually go sink it in. It's like every little stage of the process is about creating this clearing. And then for studio stuff, it made me think about I think in Oprah's green room, I once heard that there's this sign, and it was basically like, please be aware of the energy that you bring into this room.
Mm.
And I love that. And like for me, I have like basically no phone policy in the room. Like if we're in the studio, we're making music. And I've also realized this wasn't necessarily conscious. Actually, it was. I had a client once come in with a shitty attitude. Music. And I was like, well, we're not making music like this. This isn't going to happen.
Like
So
it's not gonna happen. Like that's
it's just not going to happen. It's just like we're going to waste our time, and it's not going to be fun either. So what I did was before we went in, I would just take the dog for a walk around the block with her every session beforehand, and I would check in, and like we would get the casual conversation out of the way, and like what are you bringing into this studio, and let's clear it so that when we step in there, we're there.
that's great because that that ties into what I was thinking for myself in the sense of the way for me to kind of make a clearing in my own self so that I can make a meaningful connection with someone else is to let go of, say, the fears I have, the desires for a successful conversation, like a hope that there's going to be money at the end of the road, or like all of these things that are like a noise that don't really, they stand in the way on my side from having that transformative experience. Like I'm not like, so the clearing, not just say being a clearing on their side and creating the context you're saying, like the very kind of almost physical, strategical, do these things like book out an appointment, there's a context, and like know how long it's going to be, don't do anything afterwards. Like that's like a beautiful chain of events that sets it up. And then also on my side, so that I can get the noise out of my way. You know what I mean? So that I'm not getting caught up in other. Same with making a record. Like when you're making a record, you have an intention, but you got to stay with what's happening now. Like what's the next part of the tune? Not like, oh, I don't know if you've ever been in sessions like this or with musicians like this, or like, oh, we're never gonna get famous. Like, just shut up. Like we're trying to make a record right now. Like it's like we can't be putting these kinds of things, this kind of noise in the way, because we're never going to be successful. We're never going to make a meaningful connection. We're never going to transform our current situation into something better if we have this noise, you know what I mean? So I have to get all these different levels of noise out of my own mind, and then hopefully out of the mind of the client, so that we can have that real conversation. It's not like Jamie was saying, or like a couple of people were saying, like, like they have a story, like you were saying too, Devin, like they have a story and they're going along on the story. It's almost just like mental noise that they're used to having. And to be able to be like, hey, wait a minute, what about this? Like, let's make the record, or like, let's have the conversation, or let's clear this stuff out of the way. That track. Yeah. Philip.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is really a question, but I feel like, when you're speaking to someone and they say something like, oh, it's oh, I'll never get rich, or I'll never amount to something, or oh, I always get sick, or I can't drive a car, or you know, whatever, and they just throw out this flippant, un unthought out statement about themselves, like, oh, but I've always been stupid or something, and you're like, is that really what you think about yourself? That's what it sort of feels like, what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, and that I want to tie this back to what you're saying about your mom. So in my opinion, there's two kind of things kind of happening right there. So say, to me, coaching and a lot of situations, and when you use coaching, is paradigm shifting. There's helping people uncover more of their personal map, and then there's also shifting them out of the paradigm that they're in. So if someone was to say to me, I'll never be famous, a way to entrench them further into their paradigm would be to say, is that really how you think? It just puts them right in the paradigm. They're thinking inside the paradigm. A way for me to shift them out of their paradigm is to say, would you like to rethink that? Like, are you open to a different way of thinking about that? Or is that attitude working for you? Are you getting what you want out of life? And that puts the ball back in their court, and I don't consider that just to be a pure coaching thing. I also always I will ask people that at the bar. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like, I feel like it's a soft way to be like, do you think would you be interested in thinking about that differently? And and then maybe have a bit of a conversation about it, but not a lot. Not gonna go into full coach mode. I'm not gonna do surgery, heart surgery, while we're having a cigarette or something like that. But so I just want, because you were talking about your mom and how you are talking about, and another little division I want to make there is that there's mentoring, and then there's coaching, and there's teaching to me, and there's therapy, and there's even being a priest. Like they're all different angles of a similar thing. And
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
certain type of catharsis.
This is so funny because I had the same conversation with Will today, and I'm still not 100% sure, so I have to research that. But how would you just, because I think teacher is obviously, I'm not really clear on the difference between mentorship and coach. How would you distinguish those?
So there's have you heard of the concept of inside out thinking and outside in thinking?
Is that sort of like Simon Sinek, start with why? Like we know what we do, we know how we do it, but we don't necessarily why we do it.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. And there's so coaching is about understanding a person's true impetus, in my opinion. This is my own coaching stuff. So basically what's the X factor? What's your true driving motivation for what you do? How do we dig into that and find it? And it exists almost as a theta wave process. It turns into this hypnosis place where things are springing from deep out of the unconscious, your true purpose. And coaching has to create a space for that to happen. You can't put it on to someone. This is your purpose, this is what you're doing in your life. So coaching is providing a space for that to emerge and gently guiding the person towards, stopping the mental noise and tuning in with what is essentially, to me, a very difficult task, which is understanding your purpose. And that's why there's the phony stuff, because there's so many ways to avoid the difficult thing of understanding yourself, really understanding yourself, core level understanding, spirit, self, internal place. Then there's teaching, and teaching has nothing to do with that. Teaching is like, I have a curriculum, I have like a set of functions that I need you to carry out, learn all your scales, or learn all your, learn all your vocal exercises, or like, this is how you measure a piece of wood, or this is how you set a telescope, or like whatever type of mechanical or processes or chemical processes. These are all these things work. Mentorship is like, I am successful at what I do. This is what I did to do it. This is the potential pathways to get there. I wouldn't do this because when I did it, I was a failure. So it's this imparting of information. It's like, if you want to have a success, it's what the modern education system does. It's like, you need to follow these milestones and do these things. And if you do these things, you'll eventually have these outcomes and they'll be successful as long as you get straight A's, do everything right. You know what I mean? That's their model. It's not an education system. It's, if anything, it's a mentoring system, or a teaching system. It doesn't educe, it doesn't bring anything out of you. So when you're coaching in a teaching situation, it's really being like, so who are you? Why are you in this room? Why do you keep coming here talking to me about things? What do you want? Like, it's really that, like, wake up to what you're doing and your reason for doing it, which is different than teaching. Teaching, you can constantly be distant. You can always be like, you're over there and I'm going to tell you what to do. Next, you're like that kind of. So yeah, so in terms of your mom, you might find that if she says, oh, X, Y, and Z, you can just get really real and be like, well, is that working for you? Rather than being like, okay, mom, well, why don't you try this? Or why don't you give this a go? Or
Yeah, it's what they describe in the Prosperous Coach as helping or giving advice, right? Was it? Yeah, I think it was. Helping is actually to help someone. Giving advice is like, throwing business cards at someone, and they're like, just take that away from me. I'm not interested.
yeah, exactly. Let's jump, just because I feel like I've talked. Oh, Jamie, you want to?
Philip, I just wanted to say, you're fighting an uphill battle if you're trying to coach or teach your mom, because you got to flip the dynamic of parent-child. Like, that's a tough thing to do, even if you had no coaching abilities. So, I mean, kudos for trying, but understand that it's not you. There's a tough dynamic there as well. That's you got to overcome.
Yeah, totally. It's gonna be like, I gave birth to you. You literally came from me. You're an extension of me. Let's
We have an expression. It's a chicken. Was it chicken came before the egg? In Polish, we actually say the egg is smarter than the chicken. Yeah, the egg is smarter than the chicken. So she's always like, egg is smarter than the chicken, isn't it? So she take it.
Wow. Wow. That's Eastern European, like.
Yeah.
Right.
See, and my parents said, leave home while you still know everything.
Yeah. No. This is so tongue in cheek, eh? Oh,
Fact, though.
okay, so we just got like one last part here that I want to read. Coaching is not a good profession for friendship-seeking frauds and phonies. What is most sad to us is to see a genuine, good, authentic person spend their day trying in vain to market and sell and manipulate people into the coaching practice, because that's how I thought it was supposed to work. That is not how it works. We will show you how it works. So I just have a little story about that too. So I had a coaching call with my coach, with Nick yesterday, and I was talking to him about client creation and some issues I'm having, and I had this realization in my mind. It's one that I've been wrestling with lately, about this inner urge to convince people that I could coach them, and that there's some people who are convincible, there's some people who aren't convincible, there's some people who are very convincible, and it didn't feel good to me. Like, I don't even like to reach out because I don't want to try and convince people of this. Like, I know I can do it. It doesn't really. So trying to convince people, it seems like a very strange. It doesn't feel very good. I also don't want people to join a coaching conversation or do anything with me, like play music with me or anything, be my friend or whatever, because I convinced them to do it. It just doesn't seem like a sustainable methodology in any sector of my life. So this goes back to this kind of clearing the space for transformation process. Because how Nick explained it was, throw out seeds and then water the seeds, and don't judge any of the seeds. Don't be like, that's a bad seed. Like, that seed's never going to grow, or that seed's going to die. I'm only going to water these particular seeds. These seeds are the best seeds I have, or something like that. Just equally water all the seeds, all the different kind of processes by serving people. And just authentically serving them, not serving them in the way that you hope will convince them to continue working with you. And I found that to be true, not just in the coaching world, but in all of the different things that I do, even with close relationships. And that if I just, rather than be like, oh, I'm pretty sure I could convince this person through my marketing or something like that, that I'm going to be able to get them into a coaching session, or get them to play in my band, or get a gig, or something like that, or get a session. So that's just me kind of being vulnerable in this call, because I think that that's what he's trying to say in this situation, is that lots of genuine, good, authentic people use these marketing strategies, and then not only just marketing strategies, but in actual direct conversations, you are a good person. You're a good, authentic, loving, committed person. And that's what should sell. You're plus obviously skilled, but you can always learn more skills. So I'm just trying to kind of put that out here. I think that's ultimately what the Drop the Phony Stuff is about, is like, I'm going to have to convince people. I'm going to have to market to people. I'm going to have to be amiable. I'm going to have to be fun or social or something like this. But when you cut to the quick or whatever, are you a good person trying to do a good thing, regardless of what industry it's in? So that's, and I had to clear the noise out of my mind of that. I have to come back and remember I'm a good person doing a good thing for a good reason. And I think, and that's in music, that's in my personal relationships. The authentic, true person I am is doing good. Right? And that I have to remember that. Sometimes I'm not willing to let that be the message I send to the world. I think I have to do something else. Michaela.
What's up?
Yeah.
You said my name super well now, man. Thanks.
Nice.
By the way, in that thing, mentor, coaches thing, and all the other roles, you didn't say what Italian-based players are in the pyramid, but I guess it's pretty high. Anyway.
Very high. Very high.
Thank you. Okay, awesome. Okay. Oh man, this is really interesting, because to me, which again, I come from outside coaching space, but what you just said is like, in a way, you could make a system to take the, what was the title? Drop the phony stuff, all the bullshit, in every place you can. Like, you probably, what you were doing, you were putting phony stuff in front of you, like an outcome, like money, like some goals, number of clients, and dropping the phony stuff allowed you to reconnect to who you actually are, what you actually want from this, what's your vision from it. You're actually doing this for what? To actually help people, like transform people, change a situation, the team warehouse kind of stuff. So that's really interesting, because it's not just, okay, what am I doing actually phony in the talks with the clients or in trying to close clients, or what is the client doing that's phony? The phony stuff they put in front of you, in between you and how to get to that result, right? But it can apply in a lot of contexts. So yeah, it's hard work, I guess.
That's what I was kind of trying to say. And then also, like, we'll read later on, like, it's one of the 18 disciplines is to slow down. And it's very easy. And why I'm coming back to this so many times, it's very easy to be in any situation and go fast and miss some situation and become like inauthentic without even trying. Like, you're just, because it takes a lot to slow down and be like, well, like, what about and really gauge the slower stuff that's right in front of you, and then, like, in front of me, and then to ask myself those really important questions. Oh no, Nick is coming right at the end of the, oh no. I don't even know if I should let him in. Let's see. Nick, must have given you the wrong time, bro. But yeah, that's what I was trying to kind of say, is that when I drop the phony stuff for me, Nick,
Hey, yeah, I
hey,
think maybe that did happen.
and I feel so bad about it because we had such a great conversation, and you would be fantastic part of
Damn
the
it.
creation. So nice to
Damn
see.
it. All good, all good. I'll do some catching up. You guys just wrapping up then.
Yeah, I'm just
You
kind
carry
of,
on with your flow. I'll just pick up where you're leaving off.
for sure. I want kind of some closing statements. My closing statement is just that exact thing, is that there's all this kind of phony, different types of phony stuff in my life. It's easy to go too fast and not see the phony stuff. It's also easy to think that I need to act in a certain way that's just not my purely authentic self. And to think I need to do that because I don't recognize that I am this good, authentic person that wants to serve the world. And and that I put something in front of that message. And so that's my kind of closing statement with Devin.
Nick, good to see you. I'm excited to show up next week, and I hope you're here. Yeah, this has been awesome. There was one thing, it's a little bit about a topic that we were talking about before, but Philip, like, when you were basically like that dynamic with your mom, I totally get that. That is one of the most challenging relationships in my life. And it really made me think again. I'd never seen this connection before, but one of the disciplines is like being a powerful coach versus giving unsolicited advice. Right. And it's like, just because you tell people what you think that they should do, that's not a coaching context. That's one level of coaching, maybe. It's not what I'm looking for. And like, when people come to me, that's not what I'm looking to give them. So I wanted to give you something that I think everyone in here might find really valuable. It was I actually dug it up from a Rich Litvin email. And the first time I read it, I was just like, oh, how did I not have that sentence? Such a gem. So the first one that is good, but maybe not as gold, is, do you want feedback or do you want me to just listen? It's nice. Now this one is like, I should frame this. I might frame this by next week. Do you want to be helped, heard, or hugged?
Yeah, word. That one goes right into my personal relationships. Sometimes I just gotta give like the girl a hug. You know what I mean? It's like it's not even about helping or hearing. It's just like we just need some physical like you know what I mean? Just that's what's really needed here. That's bad. Helped, heard, or hugged. Just
I feel like that would be great with kids.
put it
I feel like that would be great with kids.
totally, totally, absolutely. Any other fantastic? Also, I want to mention, Devin, you've been super courageous on this call. You just put forth a lot of stuff, man. Jamie too, Michaela, Philip, absolutely. And and Alexis, so nice to have you here and listening. I saw you were really taking it in. There's some times where you're like, I can see those heavy nods. So that's fantastic. Nick, I'm sorry I gave you the wrong time. There's a dip. So now is this 8:30?
This is 8:30 p.m. over here. Yeah.
Okay, so it's at 7:30 now because you guys' time must have changed over. Like you said,
7:30. Yeah. So like, well, we'll work it out for next week. 7:30. Okay, an hour earlier than this next week. Okay. All right. I can do that. No worries. At least I know that I've shown up and I've brought everything I possibly could to the table.
nice. Your very being is shining into the room. Any closing statements? Anybody else want to say anything? Comments, criticisms, arguments?
I put it in the comments, but Neil, thank you for creating the clearing for this to happen.
I couldn't do it without you guys. I love this. I will see you guys next week.
Yeah, nice seeing you
Looking
all.
forward to
Thanks,
it.
Neil.
All right.
Peace.
Latest, folks.
Later.
Bye.
Thank you.